Hello.
Hi,
Hold
can
on.
you hear me?
Yes, let me turn on my video. Okay. Can you hear me well?
I can.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love the topic because songwriting is like
Uh,
what I would do all day, every day if I had no other obligations. So
that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, gosh, I'm a huge fan, just first off. So this
thank
is
you.
really exciting for me.
Where are you based,
um,
Lucy?
yeah, so so I'm here in Colorado, just outside
Okay.
of Denver.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you? Where are you? Are you on the East Coast, East
Yeah,
Coast,
I'm
right?
in New York, Long Island, just east of New York City, which is where I grew up.
Nice. We have family in Long Island,
Oh,
so
really?
that's awesome.
Whereabouts?
Massapequa, am I saying that right?
Sure, I know where that is. Yeah, it's not that's not near me, but I know where it is. Yeah.
I think it's Long Island. Maybe it's not Long Island. I don't know. I'm geographically challenged.
Hey, that's okay. I mean, we all have challenges in different ways, so whatever, man. Geography, all
Well,
good.
welcome. So I'm gonna kick off a quick introduction. Obviously it's recording, so we'll edit and clip and do what we need to do to get this where we want it. But I will start off by saying that, thanks again so much for the opportunity to meet with you. We are here with Michael Goldwasser. Am I saying that right?
Yes,
Goldwasser.
you are. Yeah.
Okay. Record producer, songwriter, musician with the Easy Star All Stars. You've worked with numerous musicians and artists like Kelly Clarkson, Janelle Monae, obviously Jason Mraz, which you did a whole album and produced that for him. So that's amazing. So that's awesome. So welcome to Songology.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Songology, of course, is an interview series where we chat with songwriters. Most notably people in what we call the Reggaeish music community. So it's something that my husband and I started. Because I mean, reggae music is just the heart of us and where we are and what we grew up with. So there's like lots of different, I think, reggae-ish genres out there that kind of fall under that whole umbrella. So we're just talking and chatting with songwriters and kind of understanding their processes and maybe gaining advice or insights into how you compose songs, how your process basically, and how you write music. So if it's okay, I'll just kick it off with my first question, unless you
Sure.
want to add anything.
No,
Okay.
thanks again for having me, and let's hit it.
All right. So, well, first question. I mean, how do you start a song? Can you describe how you would personally compose a song?
Yeah, I mean, there's many different ways over the decades I've been writing. So, sometimes it starts with a lyric just comes to me, or sometimes a melody, or sometimes a lyric and a melody together, which is kind of the best, because then you've really got the basis of a song. Um, Sometimes I'll start with a bass line. Sometimes I'll start, I'm just playing some chords on a keyboard, and that'll lead to the beginning of a song, or a drum pattern, or sometimes just a concept, a theme, like something occurs to me and I want to approach that subject. So there's no one way, it's like kind of every time I sit down to write a song, it could be different. And often it's not that I'm sitting down to write a song, it's that a song comes to me, like I wake up with a song, or a song comes to me in the shower or when I'm driving, and I do a lot of singing into my voice memos on my phone when I'm out in the world. Or like sometimes I'll be, like in a train and it's all crowded. I'm like, "Oh, but I can't lose this idea." So I kind of quietly sing it to my phone. And often and when I listen back to it, I'm like, oh, I can't even tell what I was trying to do, because it's like all this extra noise. But anyway, yeah. So there's no one way that I write a song. There's many many ways.
That seems to be like a general theme. I've done a few interviews already, and so far the theme seems to be, especially songwriters who have been doing it for a while. It's like different things at different times. Something inspirational, maybe something not, maybe a melody in your head, and a voice memo is actually. I've heard another songwriter say they do the same thing where he was like, it's not even, words. It could just be like gibberish or something where I just kind of put something in there and and that builds off of that. So
And one
that's
thing to
interesting.
add is that I keep a notebook of just song ideas, and more lyrics than anything else. And I just kind of, I don't always have it with me, but when I'm going somewhere, I always try to have it with me. But because of phones and technology, I can jot down an idea in my notes on my phone as well. But I like to have this. Maybe it's because I'm old school. I like to have this notebook that I can just fill up with ideas, and then I get another one and another one, and then
Yeah.
sometimes I go back and look at old notebooks and I get an idea that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna work on that idea, So it's really kind of a cool way to keep things.
Hey, old school works. I mean, I'm old school, so I get it. Writing stuff down is helps me remember too. So okay, well then, with your decades of experience, do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
Well, my parents claim that when I was like one and a half, I wrote a song. I cannot believe that this is correct, but they love to tell this story. So they say that I wrote a song called "Candy Is Good for You." Um, so it's possible. I mean, but that seems a little crazy. One and a half. I mean, they got to be exaggerating. But I do remember being about maybe 8 years old, and I wrote not a full song. I basically wrote like a verse and a chorus. I don't even know what if I knew. Oh, I am working on a song right now. It was just I had this idea, and I don't remember like plucking it out on the piano, but I found the words on like the back of an envelope in the piano bench, at my parents' house. So maybe I was writing on the piano, and it was actually a kind of interesting concept for an 8-year old. Um, it was called "Someone Must Be Doing It," and it's about the concept was that like anything you can think of, someone in the world is doing it at that moment. Um, and I still kind of remember. I'm not going to sing it for you because I don't want to embarrass myself even more than I already have. But I do remember some of the lyrics and the melody, and so that's like the kind of the first song I can remember actually working on.
That is so cool. Did it ever make it into production?
No, but now I'm thinking about it. You got the wheels turning. Yeah, it's
Right?
actually it's not like melodically, it's not something I would ever write now. It's a little um I don't know, juvenile, but hey, I was 8, so no. But yeah, but it's still, but I really do remember that, which is kind of cool.
That's awesome. I also think maybe "Candy Is Good for You" should be a new children's song you should release out there.
Yeah, you know what? I also just because like life is about balance, right? So another story is that around the same time as Candy Is Good for You, I wrote a song about cucumbers. So it's like I got to balance out the candy with some fruits and veggies.
I'm seeing a new album concept coming out here.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, children's music is a big market, so maybe I will go there. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So with you've worked with so many different artists, and I'm sure lots of projects. What was the most challenging songwriting project you have completed to date, or would you say would be the most challenging?
That's really tough. I mean, I guess I'm not trying to be evasive, but the answer to that kind of is whatever I'm working on now. You know, because I really no, because I really do try to be present and in the moment,
Hmm.
and be here now. And I'm always trying to move forward. Like I don't even listen to like my old stuff that much, except I mean I hear it in passing, which is awesome. Like if people are playing it, but I really just want to keep moving forward and creating new stuff. So like whatever I'm working on now is is the greatest challenge and the only important challenge right now. Um, so I know maybe that's not the answer
Very
you were
good.
looking for, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
It's no, it's a great outlook and probably inspiring for songwriters who might also be working on projects and feel like they just, can't get it done. So yeah, that's awesome.
And
That's a great
another
answer.
answer to that, which again is not super specific, is that in general, and I can think of specific examples, but I don't want to name names, but co-writing with major artists or even not major artists, co-writing with artists sometimes is a great challenge because, um, artists have their own vision, which of course I respect. And some artists, like especially like when they're in a certain echelon of success and fame, they're not used to people necessarily telling them, you know what, I don't think that's great, or I think we could do better. So it can be a delicate dance to co-write with artists who maybe they hold their ideas to be very precious. I try to. I've learned a long time ago not to be precious about my ideas, and just okay, that's not. Someone else thinks that's not working. Fine, move on to the next thing. But also like I don't have the ego of an artist. Um, and nor do I have the. I don't have the talent to be front and center. An artist like that, and which is fine. I don't want to be. Um, so definitely part of being a co-writer is also uh and certainly part of being a producer is being a psychologist and like knowing how to deal with people. And sometimes like all like I mean I'm no exception. People can be irrational or stubborn and all these things. And when you're working with another artist, whether they're a big time artist or not, you just have to be aware of it being a collaboration and
Yeah,
lead with. One of my mottos is always try to have an open mind and an open heart. And that's going to lead to a lot of good things. So if any songwriters are
that's
watching this or listening to this, that's the one thing you could take away from this. I would say open mind, open heart.
that. That's a great outlook and a really good sentiment. Um, so shifting gears a little bit, then, do you have any suggestions or techniques for writers who have writer's block, and how do you find your motivation when you're stuck?
Okay. Well, first of all, I would like writers or everyone to stop even thinking of the concept of writer's block. Because like I think once you name it, you're like, I have writer's block. Oh, there's a block. It's not letting me write. Like I think that can mess you up more than not coming up with a good idea that day. Like I try to not think of the idea of writer's block. It's just like sometimes it's just not coming to you. And I guess if that happens like for days on end or weeks or months, then I guess you do have writer's block, even though I'm not supposed to say that. And in that case, I think you really just have to like the more pressure you put on yourself, the harder it becomes, I think. Um, so I think it's much healthier to just step away, not try. There's been times where I haven't even gone down to my studio to write for like a week because I just wasn't feeling it, or because I thought the process, like the ideas weren't coming, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to give myself a break. You know, um, but on the other hand, you could at least try a little every day, even if you have what you think is writer's block. just sit down at whatever instrument you play or with your notebook or whatever and just see what happens without pressure. Um, I guess maybe another cool tool for writer's block, which doesn't exist, is to try, like, if you're used to writing on your guitar, then don't write on your guitar. Try to write on a different instrument, or same for piano. Or if you're used to writing lyrics first, say, you know what, I'm going to write a whole song with no lyrics, just making up nonsense syllables, and then I'll deal with lyrics. Or if you're having trouble with melody, say, you know what, forget about melody right now. I'm going to write something really rhythmic where melody isn't that important. Um, or focus on the lyrics, like whatever's bothering you, just say it doesn't matter, and go with something else.
That's sound advice, I think. And yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, you know, it's a process probably for you guys, and you just sometimes, like you said, have to step away, and it makes sense that you come back with it with a fresher mind,
Yeah.
almost. So
I mean, also, like, just
yeah,
changing your environment can be a really healthy thing too. Just going somewhere
right.
different, and just maybe that'll inspire you, or maybe immersing yourself in some music that you don't usually listen to. Not to then copy that music, but just to catch a different vibe. Like if you don't generally listen to classical music, listen to some classical music, and maybe that'll inspire something in you that'll open up the channels that seem to be blocked.
That is interesting. That's a really good idea. Huh. Okay. I'm furiously writing stuff down, by the way. I'm kidding. I'm not a songwriter by any means, but this stuff fascinates me. Like I have a like a creative gene, I guess you could say, but I'm more of like a drama geek and into
Oh, that's
like
great. I mean,
movies.
we need all kinds of arts and creativity. So I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, so along the lines of like, of I don't know, the process and stuff, like when you have deadlines, how do you like manage your day and balance songwriting and production? Do you have a process for that or
Uh, no, I do pretty badly with that. Honestly, I'm not. I wish I could be like super disciplined. I mean, look, I always meet my deadlines, but I often wind up procrastinating, whether it's conscious or subconsciously. Um, I also I do a lot of my writing and some production at home, which is convenient, but also is not great for being able to concentrate. It's like I have a wife and kids and a cat, and just no matter, they know I'm working, but that doesn't stop them from interrupting me. So,
you were speaking
so
my language right now?
yeah. So a lot of times I'm really, and also because look, I think most people who are songwriters and producers and musicians also, you're basically running your own business or several
Mhm.
businesses. So I'd love to just spend my time creating, but I don't have a manager right now, so I'm managing my own business. So like some days I spend a majority of the day just dealing with the business side of music and not creating, which
Mhm.
stinks. I know I'm not totally answering your question directly, but I guess the idea is, with a deadline, I guess, that's when you just really have to prioritize and make it happen. But I don't have a good method. Just somehow I always meet the deadline, and sometimes it requires, working many more hours in a row than I'd want to. Um, Although I used to, when I was younger, I used to do things like mix for like 16 hours or something totally crazy, or even more, and which is so unhealthy, both, physically and psychologically and emotionally, mentally. It's not good for the music even. Um, so I guess what I'm trying to say is find a way to not push yourself in an insane way, like get the job done, but really try to plan it out so that you're not stuck working 16 hours straight or more, because that's probably not going to lead to the best results.
Yeah. Well, like you said, life is a balance. So yeah, makes sense. Okay, so what artists inspired you most to become a songwriter? And like, do you feel you get compared to anyone in particular? Like, if does someone say, "Oh, you remind me of so and so"?
Um, God, I have so many inspirations in terms of
Yeah.
songwriting. That's really tough. I guess I should have looked at these questions more before this interview. But
No, that's so great.
okay, I would
Is
say
there like one that just pops?
okay, one that just popped to my mind, and it's not even about him as a songwriter. It's just more in any specific way. It's just okay. So Paul Weller. I don't know if you know Paul Weller.
I don't
Okay,
think so.
that's all right.
If
He,
I do,
um,
I
he's very famous in the UK, much less
okay.
well known here. He had a band in the '70s and early '80s called the Jam. They were like a they were the contemporaries of the Clash in like the London punk scene, but they were also very
Nice.
melodic. He was the primary songwriter, and then he broke up the Jam in 1982, and he started another group called the Style Council, and they and then that lasted until I don't know the late '80s, and then he's just been a solo artist ever since then. But the reason I bring this up is because he um, he just delved into so many different styles um, musically, and he wasn't afraid to just do what he wanted to do. And I found that to be an inspiration. Like he started out in like the punk rock scene, and then the Style Council was basically it was like soul, R&B, jazz, and then his solo stuff is more it runs the gamut of all different styles. But when I was first like taking songwriting seriously when I was a teenager was when he was going through some of these transitions, you know. So I was like seeing it in real time and realizing like you don't have to be limited by what people think or say you should be doing. You know, just create what you want to create. So that kind of was inspirational to me.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's very inspirational. I'm sure your music and what you have done is also, inspirational to a lot of songwriters. So it makes
wow, well,
sense.
thank
Yeah.
you. I hope so. I don't, and answer the second part of your question. I don't know if I ever really get compared to anyone as a songwriter. But I hope that people compare me to good songwriters. I don't, you know, you know.
I'm
I mean,
sure
part
they
of it's also
do.
because like I write in lots of different genres, you know, so it's like it's hard to I mean, the industry tries to pigeonhole me. Like most people just see me as the reggae guy, you know, um, just because of my success in reggae. But I try to write in all different styles because it's all just music to me, you know. It's like I don't really care about genre.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it for sure. So then with songwriting itself, like who or maybe what are some like key influences for you as a songwriter? Do you find that you draw more from like personal experience or how is your songwriting influenced?
Well, I've learned over the years, like I think most people start out writing from personal experience because that's what you know. But I've
Mhm.
learned to then also try to just be a storyteller sometimes, even if it has nothing to do with my personal experience. Um, and
Yeah.
songwriting it's not just about how you feel. It's also I don't want to sound pretentious, but it's a craft, you know, like it's this thing you got to learn how to do. And I feel like if you're a good songwriter, you should be able to write about anything in any style
Hmm.
and make it good, you know. So you know, I'm obviously influenced by things that happen in my life or things that I see in the world, but I also could, if the assignment is because I'm writing for co-writing with an artist or some, which sometimes really kind of means writing for an artist and then they kind of put their name on it, which is fine. Um, you have to lose your ego. It's not about what I care about. It's not about me at all. It's just how can I write the best song for this artist? And so you explore with the artist what they want to say, and then you just use your experience and your knowledge and your skills to craft the right song for that artist, whether it has anything to do with your life or not. Um, so that's that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very interesting. And you're probably one of the, I think you're the first songwriter so far that I've interviewed that like does collaborations and works like most of the songwriters I've interviewed so far are like within their own band and their own like, that's they just write for them. They don't really write for other artists. So it's really great to hear your take on that and your influences and how that works. um, okay, so now I've heard you mention the piano, the guitar, the bass, the drums. Are these instruments that you know how to play, and or is there an instrument that you wish you could learn how to play?
Oh, sure. Well, I do play a bunch of instruments, but I don't play drums well at all. So I would love to. I mean, I understand the drums very well, being a producer. But I just have never, like, I don't have a drum kit in my studio, and I haven't spent the time trying to become a good drummer. So one day I would love to be a great drummer, not I mean, for the main reason being that I could then not have to hire a drummer, so,
Right.
um, and I'm sure it's fun, I'd also one of the, if I reflect on my career, committing myself very much to being a producer and a songwriter has been great, and I'm blessed to have a career where full time I do music, and I've been doing that for a long time. And I know a lot of people don't do that or can't do that or haven't figured it out yet. So I'm so grateful for that. But I did somewhat sacrifice honing my skills as a musician, because I would spend hours writing as a teenager when maybe some of my contemporaries were spending hours practicing to be more virtuosic on their instruments, so I would like to at some point in my life. And I mean, I practice. I spent hours practicing guitar today for an upcoming gig, but in general, my focus is on writing and producing. And one day, somehow, I'd love to just really focus or put more of a focus on being a better musician.
Okay. Um, your gig coming up, are you playing guitar in that? Is that why you're practicing so
Yes,
much?
yes. Easy Star All Stars have a gig actually in Long Island, which I mean, it's a couple hours away from me. It's a Long Island, but yeah. So it's gonna be fun to do a local-ish gig. And
Cool.
I haven't been touring with the band though of late, so I really, I'm just trying to remember. It's funny. I write all these arrangements, and then sometimes I forget, like what parts I played on the recording, and so I have to go back and listen. Oh yeah, that, so.
You're just too close to the project. So you gotta step back and
Well, it's also because, like
remember
I said,
everything.
I often, like, once I'm done with something, I just want to move forward and not be
Yeah.
dwelling on it, So, but it's all good, it's all music.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay, this is kind of the last question, and it's just a very open-ended, broad one. But best advice ever given to you?
Okay. I mean, okay, this is actually some recent advice. I was out in LA on a songwriting trip. And it was great. I just went for like less than a week and did like 5 sessions co-writing with people, which is that's what I like to do. And one of the people I co-wrote with, her name is Autumn Rowe. She's a really great artist in herself and singer, and she co-wrote like half of John Batiste's album that won 7 Grammys 2 years ago, right? So
Wow.
um, really serious songwriter. Um, and we were just, we're sort of working on a song, but then we're also, when you're working on something, you spend some time just chilling and talking. And
Mm.
I don't know why this came up, but she told me like one of her mottos is create, don't chase, which I think is so awesome. Like, I sometimes in my career have spent time chasing a sound, like what's popular now, or, what I think I should be doing. And sometimes that uh, stops you from actually just creating. So I really, and I knew that before, but her saying it just so concisely, create, don't chase, it really stuck with me. And while, look, I do sometimes take a songwriting or producing job more because it's a job, it's how I make my living, as opposed to I feel like creating with this person. It's a delicate balance. But overall, I really do try to embrace that concept of just not worrying about chasing after a hit or chasing after what's a current, the current sound, or trying to sound like some artist or some other songwriter. Just create what's in your heart and mind, and hopefully good stuff's going to come from that.
Yeah, that is good advice. I think it's almost like life advice too. Like
Yeah, sure.
could have been applied to really anything. That's awesome. Okay, well, so just any parting words? Is there stuff that you're currently working on? I know you said you have upcoming gigs. I don't know exactly when we're releasing this one. It's probably going to be in the next couple weeks, probably maybe September-ish. So anything coming up for the fall or whatever
Um,
you want to talk about, just give it to us.
all the stuff I'm working on right now as a songwriter and a producer, I can't really talk about yet. I'm not trying to be evasive. It's just, it's not even like, it's not that someone, when you're working on stuff, it's not like the other person you're working with or the label or whatever is like, you got to sign an NDA, you can't talk about it. It's more just like, I don't want to talk about stuff until it's really, until it's done and out there and real. um it's just how I roll. So I can't really speak on that. Pardon me one second. But um I co-founded and co-own Easy Star Records. And we have a couple of albums coming out later this year, which I love, that I didn't write on, but I'm just gonna wrote it anyway because someone wrote the stuff. No, the artists, excuse me, the artist wrote their own material, but it's like really amazing stuff. Like I'm only involved as kind of an executive producer and giving some input. It's not really my thing, so I can't take credit for why it's so good. But two albums that will be out this fall. So when this is published, people, they should be coming out soon. One is by an artist named Mortimer out of Jamaica, fantastic singer songwriter. I really really love his stuff. And another is by Samurai I, also from Jamaica. They're in like the same camp. They have the same producer. Um, and the producer's name is Winter James. Really, really, I mean, he's my favorite producer in Jamaica right now. So these two albums, Mortimer and Samurai I really think are going to turn heads. It's besides incredible production and great singing, but really great songwriting. So your audience might appreciate that.
That's amazing. I will definitely keep an eye out for those and add them to our curated playlist for sure. And can't wait. That's exciting. Well, sorry, I don't have much else. And I do again, thank you so much. That was really all I had. I appreciate you taking the time again. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. It's actually just listening to a bunch of Easy Star All Star songs while I was working today. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think I have anything else.
Actually, I'd like to tell a story which is relevant for songwriting if you have time
Oh,
for. Okay, because I know this isn't a question you asked me. But if you can work it in, cool. If not, then I don't mind being on the editing room floor because that's life.
No, we will find a way if it definitely. Let's hear
So,
it.
as you mentioned before, so I've worked with Jason Mraz, and we started working together. I did a remix for him in 2018, and then later that year we met and discussed doing an album together. We agreed to do it, and then we recorded the album in 2019. And we actually have recorded a whole other album's worth of material that has yet to be finished. Um, so sorry, I'm jumping around a little. So I had heard, like, before I met Jason, like several years before this, I was at a synagogue. I'm Jewish and I go to synagogue, and the rabbi was talking about this part of the Jewish scripture, which is also part of the Christian scripture. Um, it's from a book called, in English, Proverbs, and he was paraphrasing, but he said basically, look for the good and you'll find the good, and but if you look for evil, then evil is going to find you. And he just gave a sermon about that, and I just thought, man, that is so true. Like, I need to do a better job of looking for the good in everyone and in everything, and I'm going to find the good, and I can't dwell on the bad stuff because then I'm just going to be seeing the bad stuff. So anyway, I was hanging out with Jason a lot, and I told him, like, this is has become part of my philosophy, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. And then later in the process of making the album, he was like, hey man, just I need some inspiration. Send me some music that you've written, and I'm going to try to then contribute to it. So I wrote this piece of music, and I titled it Look for the Good. And then he wrote all these lyrics, um, basically expounding on that concept. And then it became the lead single from the album and the title of the album. And
Yeah,
it's been a great co-write for me. It just, it's done pretty well. But the reason I'm bringing this up, because you talked about inspiration and all this stuff. So, like, these words in the Jewish Bible were written down maybe like 3,000 years ago or something. Supposedly written by like King Solomon, and so then, like, 3,000 years later, it becomes a Jason Mraz pop song. And I think that's pretty cool, but it's also not because of my involvement. It's just like, it's just a cool concept. But I guess the idea is, like, you never, like, inspiration can be from 3,000 years ago, and that can lead to a successful song. So look everywhere, or just not even looking everywhere, but have an open mind, open heart, open eyes, and you never know where your next big song could come from. That's my story.
that's incredible. And yes, that definitely ties into like influences and inspiration for songwriters and your philosophy on how to keep an open mind. So that was great. That's so cool. Right when you said look for the good, I was like, oh my god, I know exactly where he's going with this. That's amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you for that very inspiring story. Do you have any other like kind of inspiring stories like that? Is there any other songs that you can think of where it's come from, life and experience?
Okay, well, here's a different example, which is that, and it's about how sometimes you have to write songs that aren't from your life. Um, let's see, this was 2011, I think. We were working on an Easy Star All Stars album of all original material. It's called First Light. Um, everyone who was in the touring band at the time contributed, and I produced it, and I love the album. It's not as successful as our tribute albums, but I stand by the work. But we were doing this album, and we had a whole lot of material. But I thought, you know what, this is a reggae act. We're in the reggae scene, and there's no weed song. Now, I'm not even a weed guy, but I just thought, like, all there are a bunch of people in the band who, like, you never see not high. Um, and I'm like, but they weren't coming up with anything. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a weed song. So but I didn't want to, I never want to engage in just, cliches, right? Like, so there's so many songs, so many artists out there, just like the lyrics are basically the same, or I could predict what every line is going to be if it's about weed or about anything, right? So I decided to write a song about, just a guy who grows ganja and dealing with the cops. And this is before many states in the United States had it legalized. Or anyway, I guess the story took place in Jamaica. Anyway, I wrote this song called "One Little Draw" about a guy who's growing weed, and he's just asking the cops, like, just let me take one hit before you take me away to jail. Um, so it's just funny that me, someone who didn't even really care about this stuff, writes this song, um, and now it's like our biggest non-cover hit. Like, it's like, we play it at most shows, people really love it, and it was just me having to come up with something, or wanting to come up with something that I felt filled a void, even though it wasn't about me personally. So sometimes you just have to approach songwriting as a craft and not, oh, I need to pour my heart out.
Yeah. I'm curious, like how, I mean, do you do you do research for that? Do you like bring in like an expert who
No, I
grows
didn't.
and
I
stuff?
mean,
You just kind of go for it and hope it connects.
I think I wrote an authentic story. You could listen to the song One Little Draw. It's on First Light, or I mean, you could find it anywhere online. And I just tried to write a story.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, well, and it's not unheard of for songwriters to be
sure, of course.
storytellers.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I'm sure there's plenty of people who've written songs where they've never actually personally experienced it. I think one of the songwriters I was talking with last week, he wrote a song called Homewrecker. And he's like, I'm not a homewrecker, and my home is, no one's had an affair, or it's not an experience that I've experienced myself, but I wrote the song, and it connects with people, and people still find it resonates. So I find that very fascinating that you guys are basically storytellers.
Yeah. I
Also,
mean, I don't think about it too much. I just, I don't think about songwriting, except right now you're forcing me to, which is great. I just do it. You Um, you know,
yeah,
um, One other thing that I do want your listeners or viewers to think about if they are songwriters is that it's super important to understand the business side
hmm
of being a songwriter, or anything in the arts. Um, you when you write a song, it's your intellectual property and it has value, um, and you need to protect that value. And I think it behooves anyone who wants to. I mean, obviously, anyone can just write songs for fun. That's cool. But if you want to do this as part of the music industry, you really need to learn the business side of it, understand publishing, um, understand split sheets, understand, what royalty rates are, all these things. It's like, if you're going to do this for real, then be serious about it and handle the business side.
that's a very good point too. Like I don't think a lot of people think about that when they initially, it's all for fun
Yeah,
until they
sure.
want to make a profession, a career out of it. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the business side when I wrote "Candy is Good for You" when I was 1.5. So,
I'm telling you, you got a hit on your hands.
right. I don't know if I believe in the messaging, but
Well, that's awesome. Well, I mean, I don't have anything else. I definitely, again, appreciate your time, and yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for putting out all that awesome music, and,
thank you.
so I appreciate it.
Okay, well, I appreciate you. And if you haven't delved into our latest album, Ziggy Stardub, then I hope you will, because I think it's really, really great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is that out now on Spotify? I think I was listening to mostly the obviously Dub Side of the Moon I had on earlier. And the beat what's the Beatles one? I don't know the
Easy
name.
Star's Lonely Hearts Dub Band.
Okay, yeah.
Well, yes, check out
So
Ziggy Stardub. We just released it in April. It's got a lot of great guest artists on it and great guest musicians. And yeah, I really, you know, I feel like it's one of the best things I've produced. So I'm really happy with it, even if I didn't write anything on it.
awesome.
It's, David Bowie did all the.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you. And I will check that out. And I'm sure hopefully everyone, our audience will check it out too.
Cool.
Well, thank you again for your time and have a good evening.
Dude, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing this eventually.
Yeah, yeah. We'll definitely reach out and let you know when it's coming out so you can be
Yeah,
ready.
awesome. All right, thanks
Okay.
a lot, Missy.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye.